All right, what's up, everybody? My name is Sleem. I'm the CEO of Trade with Tex. Today I'm going to go over something I've been getting a lot of questions about on social media and also in my chat room, and really that's just how to set up your TD Thinkorswim charts. Okay, now today I'm going to be setting up candlestick charts. So if you like bar charts, you like line charts, whatever you do like, this is what I'm going to focus on today. Okay, so that's the basic configuration for it. Now I am going to add volume, a few other indicators, overlays, things like that, and really just show you how to set up your flex grid, aka the flexible grid, which allows you to have multiple charts up at once and detach it and throw it onto another monitor if you need to. Okay, I'll also go over the basic charting tool and show you exactly how to use it. Okay, so again, keep in mind, I'm only going to try and say this once because I know I can get a little bit repetitive saying it, as we are all different traders, but we're all different. So your charts might be different in one manner. You might use different time frames, different indicators, whatever it may be. Bottom line is these charts are what work for me. Okay, they've worked for me in the past, and I've been using these for years. All right, so when you open up your TD screen, and actually I always keep it on the chart screen, so I'm not 100% sure, but when you open up your TD screen, this is the default that shows up. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to charts, and you can see that I already got one prepped up here for you. But we are currently under flex grid. So as you go into charts, the default I think is it throws you under charts. That's what our chart's going to look like at the end of the webinar, okay? And this is the default that it gives you. All right, now notice I'm using the two tools, flex grid and charts. All right, charts is a great one to use just because the default one, you can set up a lot of quick and easy setups for yourself. But flex grid is by far the most customizable and the most useful, I think. And I like to shuffle between these, mainly because I like to use the chart as my master chart and refer back to it on larger time frames, and then use the flex grid for much shorter, quicker day trades. Okay, so I have them a little bit different. But flex grid, again, the point is to maximize screen real estate here. So based off what you're working with, in terms of hardware, whether it's a laptop with a 13-inch screen or maybe a 15-inch desktop with 5 screens, you're really going to set it up differently, okay? But for me, right, I have a 6-monitor setup. I like to use 1, 2, 3, 4 charts. Okay, so this is what our flex grid is going to look like at the end of the webinar. All right, so in order to do that, we need to come up to this right-hand tool here, click those 9 dots. Well, I think they're technically squares, but that little show grid actions, customize grid. That's what I currently have checked. You'll see this little box pops up, and by the end of the webinar, you'll be able to save your flex grid so that you can just preload it later in case you accidentally take it down or mess something up. All right, but you'll be able to save that so you can access it later on. Now, this little box pops up, and you can see that we have, if we were to zoom in on it, you can see a little bit better, but we have this with a plus and this guy with a plus. So what we're saying is add one to the side, a chart to the side, and add one below. Okay, so since we're adding 3 more charts on top of this one, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Simple as that. All right, if you want to get the sidebar out of there, you can. I like using the sidebar because there are a lot of different gadgets that you can throw on it, and then just uncheck that customized grid. Okay, so let's load up a couple tech stocks here, maybe Tesla and a penny stock that ran today, for those of you that trade those as well. All right, now you can see that I got a few drawings on here. Let me erase them beforehand. Okay, what I'm also going to show you today is how to save a study set. So when we do load up the indicators on the chart, I want to show you how to save everything so you don't have to go back and redo it afterwards. It's just a very efficient way of doing things. Okay, now I'm going to maximize this cell here, and if at any point you want to zoom in on one cell and let it take up the entire screen, right, instead of having all 4 split up, all you got to do is click these 3 horizontal lines in the top right of the chart that you want to zoom in on and go to maximize cell. All right, so now we're zoomed back in on Apple here. All right, so on this chart, I personally don't like the default layout that Thinkorswim gives you. It's great that they have the corporate actions on there, like earnings and all that good stuff. It's great that they, keep the volume up there by default. But for the most part, the volume's not colored. Those candlesticks aren't filled. The color is kind of boring. You can't really see it that well. So if at any point you catch yourself squinting, it's time to change something on your chart, whether it's maximizing space or changing colors, whatever it may be. Okay. Now, to change the basic settings of the color scheme here and what is showing up on your chart, you click this little cog. All right, the chart settings cog. Click that guy. And based off of what you trade, you're going to be able to, configure this accurately. But first things first, we're going to go to appearance. Okay, notice that these candlesticks are empty, right? They're not filled up. So I like to check fill up there so that I can see them a lot more clearly. Okay, here's the difference. All right, so you can see it a lot more clearly. Now, Doji, for those of you that don't know, that's, a potential reversal candlestick formation. It shows, a decent amount of buying or selling pressure and really just indecision from the markets. That's something that a lot of traders want to stick out. Personally, on my chart, I still leave it in gray, but a lot of people like to set that to a brighter color. So you're more than welcome to set that as well. Okay, let's just set it to white to, have it stick out a little bit more. Show the wicks. And then the big thing with volume here, because the blue volume really doesn't tell me much, is to have it color as the symbol ticks. Okay, have it color as the symbol ticks. That way, if the price increases for that period, the volume will show up green. All right, so you can see the difference between a preset color and the color as the symbol, or color as the symbol ticks. Okay, now the last big change that I make here, and again, if you want to change it to bar or line, you're more than welcome to do that. But the last big change that I make here is the background, and I change it from gray to black. And you could see the difference right there. It's a huge difference in terms of just being able to read what's on the chart. Okay, and the grid, you can leave it the same or change it, up to you. All right, but we apply this to the chart and you can immediately see the big change in terms of just how easy it is to read. Okay, now, a lot of people ask me about how to get rid of the volume below the chart, because if you pull that lower sizing up a little bit and resize it to make it a smaller area, just a smaller window, the volume will appear on your chart, right? And I'm not talking about the lower studies here. I'm talking about the upper studies. It'll show up here and clog up the chart. You might not be able to read it well. So in order to get that to disappear, for stocks, you go to equities and uncheck this guy right here, show volume subgraph. You can see the volume disappeared right there. But personally, I like to use a different volume indicator, so I uncheck that and then just load it into my study set. Okay, and for clarification real quick, before we continue to do this, study sets are just a great way of saving a group of technical indicators and chart settings beforehand so that you can just load them up real quick. For example, if I wanted to load up a basic study set, I could just click A, B, boom, there we go. All right, so let me remove all the studies. So we go back to the chart that we were looking at. Now, there are a few things that, bug me about this chart still, and really it's those, year lines. And when we're going to the time axis, we can actually uncheck the show expiration on Friday, show year marking lines, and show rollover lines. And you can see that those disappear. All right, now if you do trade options or futures, you will have to check those in order to get them disappear as well, the volume subgraph, the different expirations, things like that. But since we're just sticking to stocks today, we're going to leave it at that. Okay, for any other configuration in the time and price, you're more than welcome to come here and go ahead and click that. All right, but we're going to leave it like this. And if you made a mistake and you want to reset it to the default, note that in almost every window where you're customizing something in Thinkorswim, you can just go to reset to chart default. Okay. So, that being said, let's jump right into it. All right, what I want to add today are a few things. Okay, the 50-day moving average, and that's a simple moving average. And if you're unfamiliar with what that is, that's perfectly fine. Okay, I'll just show you how to add it regardless. You can learn about it later. All right, the 200-day SMA. We're also going to add volume. And if we have time, we will throw on the RSI or the MACD. I haven't decided. Probably go RSI. How's that? All right, so that being said, let's jump right into it. I want to add the two moving averages first. And in order to do that, I need to go to Studies, Edit Studies. All right, I type in simple, and you can see simple moving average immediately pops up. I'm going to click it twice. All right, so 4 times in total. So now I have 2 added. All right, and you can see that my default comes up as 50, But if you click that settings tab, and this is how you actually change the indicator itself and customize it, right? If I want a 50 SMA versus a 200, in order to change that length of the SMA, I click that settings tab. Okay, now, I believe the default is 9 and then a light blue color with a 1 width. Okay, for me, with almost all of my moving averages, the first thing that I do is I change the width from 1 to 2, and you can see that I'll reset this to the factory default so you can see it. Yeah, 9, light blue, 1. All right, I immediately change the width from 1 to 2. Reason being is if you throw this on the chart, it's a lot harder to read this line than that one. Okay, sometimes it won't give you down to the right level. You might have to actually switch it up to a width of 1 in order for it to not be a thicker line, so it's harder to read, right? But a lot of times it's easier to get a read on it when you set it from 1 to 2. Okay, now to change that length to 50 for the SMA, I just type in 50 right there for length. All right, we're using the closing price to average it out. And then the color, you can set it to whatever. By default, I usually use green for my 50 SMA. Show plot, show bubble, show title. Apply. Okay, and you could see, oh, sorry, I have another 50 SMA on the chart. That's why that showed up. All right, let me get this guy out of there. All right, you can see now I have my green 50 SMA plotted. And if I want to add the 200, I just go over to Edit Studies, do the same exact thing, type in simple, and it's as simple as that. Click that little settings bar, change the length to 200, and we go down here, and I'm going to put that one in red and change the width. If you want to change the style, how it's drawn, the values that go into it, up signal, down signal, you're more than welcome to. Okay, you're more than welcome to, but I like to keep it nice and simple. Now, one thing that's pretty awesome that you can do, if you find yourself using the 50-day SMA very commonly, then you can go through and save it as your default. Remember I said that you can reset to default, but you can also save as default for almost any indicator, right? So when you do that, next time I add an SMA, it's going to come in 200, same exact thing, all the same stuff. That's going to be my default from now on. All right, you can do that with chart drawings. Chart annotations is what I'm referring to. Chart styles, chart studies, all that good stuff. So now I apply it, and you can see I've plotted a 50 and 200 SMA. Basic strategy that a lot of traders use is when the 50 crosses above the 200 SMA, it signals a shift in trend to the upside, right? A bullish shift in trend. So if you could see, had you bought on this cross, then you'd be riding Apple to some nice gains. Okay, just a very basic strategy. Of course, a lot of other things not taken into account here. And you can also see that the 200-day SMA acted as support twice here. Both, really opportunistic trades there. All right, so we've plotted those two. Remember, we got two more to go over. All right, the RSI and the volume. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with volume, I'm just going to define it very quickly. All right, volume is probably the most important thing in trading, period. It shows you whether or not there's liquidity for the stock, whether or not you're inheriting more risk or less risk, and a lot of times if algorithms are present. Okay, volume is the total number of shares traded for the time period that you're looking at. All right, so when I pull up the volume to see how much action Apple is getting, I just go to Edit Studies, Volume, and you can see that there are a bunch of different ones. Personally, I like to add volume average. Okay, and the reason why I do that is mainly because I like to see whether or not there's relative volume. All right, so I just applied it to my chart, but I'm going to slow it up a little bit and click that settings tab and show you exactly how I have it. All right, now when I reset it to the factory default, you can see that it's actually very similar to what I currently had up. All right, so I have the volume with a width of 3. All right, up, down, all that good stuff. And you want to change up the width more, you can see the difference here. Right, it becomes a lot thicker, so it's easier to read. So you can change it up to 5 for the width. All right, you can draw it as whatever you want. Keep it as the default. It's a lot simpler. Uptick is green, downtick is red. All right, the default length is 50. So essentially what we're doing here is adding a 50 SMA to the volume. And when the volume surpasses that line, we have high relative volume. Okay, it's an exciting day in some way, in one way or another. All right, now, when we're looking at this volume average, I'm not actually going to show you how to read the chart, but you can, in fact, double-click it and change that volume average line and the color of it. So if I wanted to read a little bit more easy, I can change it to pink, make it a little thicker, whatever you want to do. All right, or I can really just erase it and not have it up whatsoever. All right, so let's say I don't want it up. Let's just leave it to this default here. The three things that we've added so far under studies are 50 SMA, 200 SMA, and the volume with an average line of 50. All right, now, I told you guys I was going to add the RSI, which is the Relative Strength Index. Again, I'm not here to teach you guys how exactly these all work, but I wanted to teach you exactly how to set up these charts. So, RSI by default is set to a length of 14. The overbought zone is when the RSI surpasses 70, and when it falls below 30, it's oversold. Okay, now you can see that I have mine a little bit different here. So I'm going to reset it to the default. All right, hit OK and apply it to the chart. And you can see it pops up lower right there. Now I'm going to show you how to change it up to make it look a little bit better. But I also want to mention that you can see right here, these categories are specific to what you're seeing on your chart. So when I put a 50 SMA and a 200 SMA, those moving averages are averaging the price. Okay, if I want to put something below the price chart, I throw it onto the lower area. In order to move one way or another, I just click these arrows. Okay, if I want the RSI higher, I move it up higher. All right, and that's with it plotted on the same level as my volume in order to save space. All right, of course, it's going to clog it up, but some of you might need to do that if you don't have the space. If I want to move it back lower again, oh, sorry, I accidentally combined them, so I'll need to add it back here. All right, I can just exit out and then double click it back. And if we want to go over and configure it ourselves to something that's a little bit more easy to read, for me, oversold is a bullish note that you're making. It has a bullish connotation to it, so I like to click that guy, set it to green, right? Green for bullish. Overbought, red for bearish, okay? And then the actual normal color line, I think that gray really just blends in way too much. You can see it down there, set it to white. Okay, you can set the oversold, overbought, up signal, down signal, all that good stuff. All right, apply it. And again, if you want to save it, just click Save as Default there. Hit OK. OK. Now you got yourself a full chart. Okay, what we have here are a couple indicators thrown on it, volume, 2 SMAs, and the RSI. Okay, now that we got this chart set up, I told you I'd show you how to set up the flex grid, right? And I showed you how to pull up the 4 charts. So all we're doing now is saving this study set so that we can load it into the other charts later. So now that we have all the studies loaded up, we are going to go to Edit Study, Save as Set. What should we call it? YouTube Nonsense. How's that? Because Lord knows I'm never using this study set. All right, so YouTube Nonsense. And if we want to load it into another chart, right, we click these 9 little boxes here, Customize Grid. You can see we're back to our flex grid since I maximized this cell initially. If I want to load it onto this Apple chart here on the right-hand side, I just go over to YouTube Nonsense. All right, you can see right here I have all my different study sets laid out: scalp, scalp fast, swing, swing fibs, tick, volume, all that good stuff. And you can save it and it'll just show up on this list. All right, if you want to delete one, just scroll down and delete it. But now I have those technical indicators loaded up here. All right, and in order to get all the other stuff the same, I just have to go through and do the same thing that we did before. All right, same exact stuff here. All right, and there are a couple more things that I want to show you briefly before we wrap this up here. Just a few tips and tricks that I recommend for you guys to use. All right, so I paused it real quick and just fast forwarded it for you so we could save some time, but I loaded up all the study sets and everything. Now I just want to show you a couple more basic tricks to throw on your chart. All right, now, a few important things that every trader needs intraday: live news, level 2, and time and sales. All right, if you're unfamiliar with these, don't worry. I'm going to do a webinar on them, throw it on YouTube in order for you guys to learn a little bit more about them. But I'm going to show you how to throw them on your flex grid so that you have them up at all times. Okay, so TS, time and sales. Click that. The time and the price and the size of each trade will show up for you. Okay, not your trades, what's going on in the real market. Essential that you have that. Okay, level 2 shows you the bidders and the sellers on level 2, what exactly is going on with these market makers, with these retail traders, to show you who's moving the stock where and why. Okay, this is a huge tool that I'll go over in another webinar, but it's very important to have. And I don't usually use the live news because I use another news platform, but you can click N and it'll show you live news for this ticker. All right, so 5 worst investment ideas of 2017 thus far. There you go, there's Apple for you. And that's actually not doing too bad, but it's not doing well. All right, so again, for each one of these, just go time and sales, level 2, news if you want. I'm not going to throw the news on there just for simplicity. Level 2. All right, and there you have it. Easy as that. If you want to change the time frame, you could do so right there. Quick time frame, you could set those. But now we have ourselves 4 1-year, 1-day charts with study sets that are saved with time and sales and level 2 pulled up. Okay, if you want to detach it to put it on another screen, click these top 3 horizontal lines, detach, and you'll be able to drag it around however you want. All right, I'll put that on the main screen. Now, if I exit back out of this, I'll show you guys one last thing that I like to do, and that is have my flex grid here for short-term trades, and then pull up the charts tab in order to use my master, watch list here. So whenever I'm looking at a stock, I'll pull it up short term right here, whatever it may be. Let's, for example, let's say it's Zillow, right? Zillow. Then I'll go back on Zillow and I'll say, all right, let me get a better idea of this long-term chart. Let me see what we're looking at here. All right, that way I can go short-term, long-term, or vice versa, depending on your trading style. Okay, so again, I like to use the flex grid separately from the actual charts tool. All it is a cool way to shuffle back and forth and add a little bit more screen real estate. All right, but also this is a good way to have a master chart and then use this for what's actually in play intraday. So research, what's in play. Research, what's in play. All right, I did not go over the profit section. That's a little bit more complex. Actually, it's not too bad, but it would just take a lot more time to cover. And I hope you guys learned something. So if you have any questions, comments, whatever it may be, feel free to go to tradewithtex.com, fill out a contact form, or sign up for the free trial. If you have any questions, you can find me intraday in the chat room, or you can just comment below. All right, just comment below in the YouTube section. All right, if you like the video, go ahead and click that like button and make sure to check out some of our other educational videos. All right, thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. Happy trading.